Nyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Kara Tusay Namaha. Reading from Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat by Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur, Madhya Kanda chapter 8. Mahaprabhu displays his opulence. Mother Sachi slowly regained consciousness and quickly tied her loosened hair. Without uttering a word, she went inside her room and began weeping. She was overwhelmed with ecstatic love for Krishna, and nothing else mattered to her. Her breath came in great sighs, and her body trembled from head to toe. Meanwhile, the servant Ishan cleaned the eating room. He collected the remnants of food that had scattered over the floor and ate them all. Truly, Ishan is extremely fortunate, for every day he performed such wonderful activities. Yet he remained like a simple servant, and thus no one knew that he daily perceived the highest transcendental truth. Lord Gaurachandra, along with his devotees, continued to perform congregational chanting of the holy name in Navadvip. Although the Lord's eternal associates had appeared in different parts of Bengal, gradually in small numbers they began to come to Navadvip. There they soon found out that the Supreme Lord had appeared. Allaying the fears of the devotees and filling their hearts with bliss, Lord Vishvambar manifested himself before them as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord's devotees are as dear to him as his own heart. Thus that Supreme Personality, who is intensely sought after throughout the Vedic literature, mixed unreservedly with his devotees. He embraced them all so lovingly that each one felt as if he alone was the most prominent of the Lord's associates. The Lord regularly visited his disciples in their homes, where he would exhibit to them his four-handed form. Sometimes he went to Gangadas Pandit's house or to Murari Gupta's house, and at other times he visited Srivas Pandit. However, all the while the Lord's constant companion was Nityananda Prabhu, from whom he could not bear to be separated. Lord Nityananda was always engrossed in a playful mood of a young boy, and Vishvambar wholeheartedly reciprocated with him in the same spirit. According to their particular faith, various devotees saw Lord Chaitanya appear before them in different incarnations. Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Vamana, Nishinga, etc. Some days the Lord was absorbed in the mood of the gopis and wept continuously, oblivious to the passage of time. Other days he felt like Uddhava or Akrura, while at other times he felt like Lord Balaram and demanded that wine be brought to him. Sometimes he was filled with the emotions of Lord Brahma and began chanting hymns, falling on the ground. Another time, feeling like Prahlad Maharaj, he offered prayers to the Supreme Lord. In this way, Lord Chaitanya tasted and floated on various waves of devotional ecstasy. Observing the happiness of her son, Mother Sachi was extremely happy. Yet one dreadful thought continuously interrupted her cheerful mood. What if my son leaves home? Brushing such unpleasant thoughts aside, she said, "Dear son, go and take your bath in the Ganga." "Mother, please chant the holy names, Krishna, Rama." In every conversation with his mother, the Lord simply replied with one word, Krishna. These super excellent transcendental pastimes of the Lord are all inconceivable. They cannot be understood by any amount of material calculation. One day, a wandering devotee of Lord Shiva passed by singing the glories of his Lord, while dancing blissfully round and round. Hearing the singing of the Shavite, Sri Chaitanya suddenly appeared in the form of Lord Shiva, with great matted locks of hair piled upon his head. Jumping up on the singer's shoulders, he shouted loudly, "I am Shankarshan! I am Shankara!" The people watched in amazement as the Lord sat perched on the devotee's shoulder. As the Saivite continued playing upon a horn and a small hand drum, the Lord encouraged him to continue singing. That day, the fortunate devotee of Lord Shiva received the full benefit of purely glorifying Lord Shiva without offenses. The Supreme Lord Gaurasundar had sat upon his shoulders. Regaining normalcy, the Lord then climbed down and personally offered alms. The singer devotee left, feeling extremely grateful and satisfied. The devotee servants of Lord Gauranga shouted Lord Hari's name in exultation, feeling a surge of devotional ecstasy in the Lord's company. The Lord said, "You, my brothers, please hear the essential conclusion of all the scriptures. Why should we waste our nights in useless activities? Let us make a firm resolution from today to spend our nights engaged in the most auspicious of activities, chanting the Lord's name. By performing the congregational chanting of the holy name, all of us will drown in a divine deluge of devotional ecstasy, like the gushing flute of the Ganga Devi." Let the whole world be delivered by hearing the holy name. In that way you will all become everyone's spiritual life-giver and beloved treasure. The Lord's word breathed great joy into all the Vaishnava's heart. Lord Chaitanya had become his kirtan pastimes. Every night the Lord met the devotees in Srivas Pandit's house and performed kirtan. Some days he would also meet in Chandrasekara's house. So many devotees, the Lord's dear servants, would attend the kirtan meetings that all their names cannot possibly be remembered. Lord Nityananda was there with Gadadhar Pandit, Advaita Acharya, Srivas Pandit, Vidyanidhi, Murari, Hiranya, Haridasa Thakur, Gangadas, Banamali, Vijaya, Nandana, Jagadananda Pandit, Buddhimanta Khan, Narayan, Kashishvara, Vasudev, Rama, Garudai, Govinda, Govinda Ram, Gopinath, Jagadish, Sriman Sridhar, Sadashiva, Varkeshvara, Sri Garba, Suklambara, Brahmananda, Purushottama, Sanjay, and others. The Lord was always surrounded by these devotees, who always accompanied him in kirtan and dancing. The Lord's ecstatic thunderous roars and loud kirtan rent the very limits of the material world. These kirtans agitated the envious atheists. They clapped their thighs and jumped up, pouring out streams of profanity. Starting at night time, after a good bout of wine drinking, all this loud howling and wild dancing is robbing us of our precious sleep throughout the entire night. These impostors entice women to themselves with their hypnotic enchantments and enjoy them the whole night. These atheists were consumed in their own fire of hate. However, the Lord Sachidananda danced in graceful effulgence. As soon as the kirtan began, the Lord would enter trance and become oblivious to the phenomenal world. Dancing, he would fall to the ground with such great force that the earth quaked and cracked in many places. The devotees would look at him stunned in fear, as the Lord's tender body contacted the hard surface. Sachi Mata would close her eyes, silently praying to Lord Govinda, Krishna, for the protection of her son. Sachi Mata knew that Nimai was in spiritual trance. However, due to her intense love for the Lord, she experienced great agony. She didn't know what action to take, so she earnestly prayed to the Lord, "O Lord Krishna, please grant me this wish, that I may not know when Nimai hurls himself to the ground. Please grant me this mercy, Krishna." Although for Nimai there is no pain, but only actual blissfulness, I will be happy to remain unaware of all this. Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Lord, knew Sachi Mata's wishes, so accordingly he infused divine ecstasy in her. As long as Lord Chaitanya performed kirtan and dancing, Mother Sachi entered a state of deep spiritual acceleration and became heedless of this material world. Unceasingly, the Lord spent these days in kirtan and ecstatic dancing surrounded by his followers. Many days the devotees would collect in the Lord's house and begin loud sankirtan, while the Lord immersed himself in dancing. At times the Lord exhibited his mood as the omnipotent supreme controller. Then at other times he wept in humility, saying, "I am your servant." Dear readers, hear these narrations about the Lord's transcendental ecstasies very attentively, for in the entire creation there is no one who can dance so gracefully as Lord Chaitanya. Similarly, the beautiful and exuberant singing of his associates, which accompanies his dancing, is also incomparable. From early dawn, on special days such as Ekadasi, Dwadasi, and Vishnu Tattva appearances, Lord Chaitanya assembled all the devotees in Srivas Pandit's house and began enchanting everyone with his jubilant dancing. In the house of that most fortunate soul, Srivas Pandit, a melodious tumult of the holy names of Govinda and Gopal went up into the atmosphere. Different kirtan groups came forward from the assembled devotees. Srivas Pandit headed one group, Mukunda another, and Govinda yet another. They all sang, and the Lord danced. Nityananda Prabhu, that great spiritual stalwart, circumambulated the dancing Lord, while Advaita Acharya stealthily lifted the dust from the ground where the Lord danced and put it on his head. Kadada Pandit and others experienced divine acceleration and looked at the Lord with tearful eyes. Hear now of how kirtan was performed to accompany the Lord's magnificent dancing. Often the holy name was sung in Bhati Yari Raga. Shall we stop here for today? Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat Ki Jai, Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur Ki Jai, Madhya Kanda chapter 8. Mahaprabhu displays his opulence Ki Jai. Shall we still read something from Sri Guru and His Grace? Yeah. Reading from Sri Guru and His Grace by His Divine Grace Swami Bhakti Sridhar Maharaj. And this is a preface from Srila Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. One should understand the spiritual master to be as good as I am, said the blessed Lord. Nobody should be jealous of the spiritual master or think of him as an ordinary man, because the spiritual master is the sum total of all demigods. That is, the Acharya has been identified with God himself. He has nothing to do with the affairs of this mundane world. He appears before us to reveal the light of the Vedas and to bestow upon us the blessings of a full-fledged freedom, after which we should hanker at every step of our life's journey. The transcendental knowledge of the Vedas was first uttered by God to Brahma, the creator of this particular universe. From Brahma, the knowledge descended to Narad, from Narad to Vyasadeva, from Vyasadeva to Madhva, and in this process of disciplic succession, the transcendental knowledge was transmitted by one disciple to another till it reached Lord Gauranga, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who posed as the disciple and successor of Sri Ishvarapuri. The present Acharya Dev is the tenth disciplic representative from the Sri Rupan Goswami, the original representative of Lord Chaitanya, who preached this transcendental tradition in its fullness. The knowledge that we receive from our Gurudev is not different from that imparted by God Himself, and the succession of the Acharyas is the preceptorial line of Brahma. We adore this auspicious day as Sri Vyasapuja Tithi, because the Acharya is the living representative of Vyasadeva, the divine compiler of the Vedas, Puranas, Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, and Srimad Bhagavatam. We read this yesterday. To receive transcendental knowledge, we must completely surrender. Jai. To receive transcendental knowledge, we must completely surrender ourselves to the real Acharya in a spirit of ardent inquiry and service. Actual performance of service to the Absolute under the guidance of the Acharya is the only vehicle by which we can assimilate transcendental knowledge. Today's meeting for offering our humble services and homage to the feet of the Acharya Dev will enable us to be favored with the capacity of assimilating the transcendental knowledge so kindly transmitted by him to all persons without distinction. Gentlemen, although it is imperfectly that we have been enabled by his grace to understand the sublime messages of our Acharya Dev, we must admit that we have realized definitely that the divine message from his holy lips is the congenial thing for suffering humanity. All of us should hear him patiently. If we listen to the transcendental sound without unnecessary opposition, he will surely have mercy upon us. The Acharya message is to take us back to our original home, back to God. Let me repeat, therefore, that we should hear him patiently, follow him in the measure of our conviction, and bow down at his lotus feet for releasing us from our present causeless unwillingness for serving the Absolute and all souls. Sitting at the feet of the Acharya Dev, let us try to understand from this transcendental source of knowledge what we are, what is this universe, what is God, and what is our relationship with Him. The message of Lord Chaitanya is the message for the living entities and the message of the living world. Lord Chaitanya did not bother himself for the upliftment of this dead world, which is suitable named Matya Loka, the world where everything is destined to die. He appeared before us 450 years ago to tell us something of the transcendental universe, where everything is permanent and everything is for the service of the Absolute. But recently, Lord Chaitanya has been misrepresented by some unscrupulous persons, and the highest philosophy of the Lord has been misinterpreted by the cult of the lowest type of society. We are glad to announce tonight that our Acharya Dev, with his usual kindness, saved us from this horrible type of degradation and therefore we bow down at his lotus feet with all humility. We are happy that we have been relieved of this horrible type of malady by the mercy of his divine grace. He is our eye-opener, our eternal Father, our eternal preceptor, and our eternal guide. Let us therefore bow down at his lotus feet on this auspicious day. Gentlemen, although we are like ignorant children in the knowledge of transcendence, still my Gurudev has kindled a small fire within us to dissipate the invincible darkness of empirical knowledge. We are now so much on the safe side that no amount of philosophical argument by the empiric schools of thought can deviate us an inch from the position of our eternal dependence on the lotus feet of his divine grace. Gentlemen, had he not appeared before us to deliver us from the thraldom of this gross worldly delusion, surely we would have been remained for lives and ages in the darkness of helpless captivity. Had he not appeared before us, we would not have been able to understand the eternal truth of the sublime teaching of Lord Chaitanya. Personally, I have no hope for any direct service in the coming course of birth in the sojourn of my life, but I am confident that some day or other I shall be delivered from this mire of delusion in which I am at present so deeply sunk. Therefore let me with all my earnestness pray at the lotus feet of my Divine Master to allow me to suffer the lot for which I am destined, but due to my past misdoings, but to let me have this power of recollection that I am nothing but a tiny servant of the Almighty Absolute Godhead, realized through the unflinching mercy of my Divine Master. Let me therefore bow down at his lotus feet with all humility at my command. Abhay Charandas, for members, Sri Gaudiya Math, Bombay. This lecture was originally published in The Harmonist in 1936 on the Advent Day of His Divine Grace, Om Vishnupad Sila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Jai Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Sri Guru and His Grace Ki Jai. His Divine Grace Swami Bhakti Rakak Siddhadev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Hariharaya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha.
Hariharaya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha.
Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan.
Gopala Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudana.
Giridhari Gopinath Maranamaha.
Giridhari Gopinath Maranamaha.
Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra.
Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra.
Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Radhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Rupa Sanatam Bhatta Raghunath.
Jaya Rupa Sanatam Bhatta Raghunath.
Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath. Jai Kusai Kuri Charana Bandham. Jai Devi Gnana Sadishta Puram. Kolaba. Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Korila Prakash. Anand Balari Bhaja Vrindavan. Sri Guru Vaishnava Parena Jayama. Sri Guru Vaishnava Padma Puriya. Hari Nam Sankirtana Kore Narottama Das. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Sachinandana Jaya Korari. Jaya Sachinandana Korari. Nitai Koranga, Nitai Koranga. Nitai Koranga Jaya Korari. Nitai Korari Bo, Nitai Korari Bo. Nitai Korari Bo, Nitai Korari Bo. Jaya Sabai Kai Sisi Guru Kuranga Sundar Radha Giridhar Joki. Om Vishnu Patsila Bhakti Nirmala Chaya Maharaj Ki. Om Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat Sri Acharya Vrinda Ki. Om Vishnu Patsila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki. Om Vishnu Patsila Bhakti Sundar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki. Bhagavan Sila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki. Sri Rupa Thakur Ki. Jaya Sila Haridas Thakur Ki. Sakshat Sri Nityananda Prabhu Ki. Sakshat Sri Mahaprabhu Ki. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shyam Guru Radha Kunda Ki Govardhan Ki. Tulasi Narayan Ki. Ganga Yamuna Ji Ki. Radharani Srimad Bhagavatam Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat Ki. Sri Navadvitam Ki. Sri Mayapur Ki. Sri Vrindavan Ki. Sri Purushottam Ki. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki,
Jai
Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Ki,
Jai
Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Islam Chatra Ki,
Jai
Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Vaishnava Chatra Ki,
Jai
Samveda Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki,
Jai
Samveda Vaishnava Mantra Ki,
Jai
Harinam Sankirtan Ki,
Jai
Nitai Gaur Premanande,
Sachi Devi
Sachi